I am incredibly excited to be bringing you today's edition of Clutching Our Pearls, and I'm your host, Marie Hale. And although I am the co-founder and CEO of At Revenue, which is a Chicago-based sales and marketing firm, that is not the focus of this podcast. This podcast is for Forward Revolution, a company forged from the social, economic, and domestic upheaval that was the glory of 2020. I'm a single mom, an entrepreneur, and it turns out when I get angry, I start new businesses. And when I saw how mothers were losing their jobs faster than basically anybody else, I could no longer sit still. I saw how women of color and the LGBT community and disabled persons were just let go, put on furlough. Lots of charming terms for you're not needed anymore. The pandemic tore families and businesses apart. The mission of Forward Revolution is to rebuild in a new and equitable way, to fight back against the female recession, to empower parents and caretakers to take control of their lives by creating new and sustainable ways of revenue generation and education. We don't have to put things back the way that they always were, because they were broken. So let's be revolutionary. And my traditional warning, this is not a radio edit. You will hear some swearing during this podcast. Bleep if you'd like, or just have fun with us. So I could not be more pleased to have today's guest on our show. We are talking with the luminary that is Linda McCabe about the value of being scrappy and forging your own path. Now, I could read Linda's credentials all day long, and I'm going to give you a hot hit list, but this is a person that has meant more to me in my life than I think most of the mentors and friends and folks that have been there to lift me up. She has kept me going, shared her wisdom, and kicked me in the ass whenever I needed it. She's a nationally known speaker, author, facilitator. Her work in leadership and business growth and just the general success of the entrepreneur and leader has changed lives. She is the creator of the incredibly popular podcast, Lightning Strikes, which is a practical conversation about the wisdom of everyday success. She interviews some of the most magnificent minds where listeners are struck by awesome ideas that help bolt them to a new level of success. She is the author of, Optimal Level, A Women's Guide to Meeting Life Challenges, Sanity and Success, a guide to corporate success, and her newest book, How to Be Powerful, Insider Secrets to Brilliant Leadership, Sales, and Speaking. She was even voted as one of Chicago's Business Ledger's most influential women. And oh my goodness, is that the truth? So Linda, thank you so much for making time for me. And I'm so thrilled to have you for the 30 minutes that we're going to get today, because the time that you and I spend together is just always a blessing. So welcome to Clutching Our Pearls.
Thrilled. I'm so thrilled to be here with you. Frankly put, I love you, and any time I can spend with you is a joy. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. So I want to go into a little bit of how we met, because you were one of the first coaches and mentors that I had. And we met in a dark, dank room for eWomen Network when I was a business baby and had just started out on my journey. And I don't know about you, but for me, the connection was instant.
It was exactly the same for me. You were a little baby, but you were so dynamic and special, Marie.
Well, I thank you for saying that, because what I saw in you was really the not just who I wanted to be when I grew up, but someone that was going to love me enough to tell me the truth. And somebody that was going to love me enough to see the good in me when I couldn't see it. And you have done that for the last 15 years.
The 15? I thought it was more, but okay.
It may be more at this point, but we'll go with
Yeah.
50 and pray for Botox. So Linda and I have worked together in a lot of capacities. I've been part of her Optimal Level program. I've been the just delighted recipient of her wisdom. She introduced me to Jim Rosas because, and this is one of my favorite stories, when I met Linda, we sat down together and she went through her sales process. And I said, I will sign up for whatever it is that your coaching does, as long as you teach me how to do that. So Linda signed me up, and then she introduced me to Jim, which was perfect. And so I had the benefit of being part of her Optimal Level coaching program and doing my sales training with Jim Rosas, which later became my life partner and my business partner. And really, he was a guru to so many of us and such a light in everyone's life. I went through his class partially with Linda McCabe as we were making sure that we knew how to be good, quality, authentic salespeople, and we were willing to put ourselves through a year of training and failing forward and building one another up. And it has created one of the most treasured relationships in my life. So thank you. The reason I invited Linda today, because, besides the general brilliance of her mind, is Linda has a very unique business story. She started her career in the scrap industry, and she took a struggling scrap iron and metal business and turned it into a multi-million-dollar success. And when she was done, she then went on to become the president and founder of Optimal Level, which really, in its pinnacle, was one of the most sought after consulting firms that helped people like me, the owners, the professionals, the corporations that knew there had to be a better way to do things, but they didn't know what it was. And she took them from where they were to where they wanted to be. And so I wanted to really dive into a couple of things. Being a woman in the scrap industry in the 80s,
yes,
had to be quite a unique experience, because I can't imagine there were too many other women that were working in the scrap industry, let alone running a scrap business.
Yes. I believe that there were 2 or 3 of us.
And did you work together or did you clash?
Pardon me?
Did you work together or did you clash?
Rarely together. Occasionally we had to talk to one another, but not really together. We were competitors in the scrap metal business, and you have to understand the scrap metal business is extremely competitive.
And so what was it like to take the helm of a male-dominated business organization? And what was that experience like, just from a transition point of view? Because was it your father's business?
It was my dad's business. Yes.
What was that handover like? And what did you experience in that?
My dad was ill, so I had to take it over. And I wanted to eventually, but I didn't know I would be that soon. But as far as being in the scrap metal business and male dominated, there were 2 parts to that. One was there were silly things like one of my clients telling me that a competitor was in and trying to get the business. And in the process, told him that I get my business by sleeping around with my customers and prospects. It was really the 80s. It was old time kind of things going on. And women were rare going into factories. They would stare at me. Of course, I'd go in, and most of the men's in the back where I had to go for what I did, They would have, all kinds of calendars of nude women. I mean, that was going on in those days. But on the other hand, most of the men were so nice to me. I don't know if that came from my attitude or if it came from them. I think it was a combination. So for me, I didn't know a lot about business. I did not know a lot about scrap metal. So how does one function when you're running a company and you don't know those things? You build relationships and you go to people and you ask, which is what I did. And everybody was kind enough to give me answers. So I built my business on the knowledge of men because there weren't other women. And they were there to help me. Isn't that odd?
So, what parts of your personality do you think helped you forge those relationships?
Well, a lot of women were sensitive to how men behaved and comments they made. And if any comments were made, if there was any kind of comment that put women down, I had a choice. I could get upset. I could make them realize that it was disturbing to me, or I could let it just lay flat, not reacting, and going on to the next thing. And, once I did that once or twice, I didn't hear those kind of comments anymore because my focus was on getting information I needed to run my business and to be successful. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there are so many times when, let's face it, we could be incensed. We could go down that path and play into the drama and the nonsense. But I think you and I are fairly similar on this, that there's no value prop there. If it's not going to help me further my cause, I'm going to go do something that's going to get me where I want to go.
Exactly. Yeah. And I found that the relationship shifted. I was no longer a woman in the business. I was a colleague. And that's how the relationship moved forward. Now, things were different then. Today, maybe I wouldn't react that way because of of what has changed and all the awareness that both men and women have in business.
But I think there's such a unique value in having gone through the first feminine revolution and doing it. You kind of, from the conversation we had before, you kind of did it on your own terms.
I did.
So what was that experience like, just as you came through us building the last 20 or 30 years of equity and making a space for ourselves? And then I'd like to dive into what you're seeing now.
Okay. Well, I didn't have a lot of interaction with working women when I was in the scrap metal business, other than the occasional buyer prospect that I would see. And those were wonderful because they were so thrilled to see a woman in the scrap iron business. One of the times I was competing for Whirlpool, was actually Whirlpool, and there was a woman buyer, and I gave my bid, and I knew that I was using another company in order to make the bid, and they were bidding, so their bid had to be better than mine, and I got the business, and I asked her, why was that? And she told me that they were making such a big deal of who they were, and I came and said, what can I do for you? How can I help you? She could see that I really cared about her. Well, they were just strutting their stuff. And so there was a wonderful little story that I remember really well because it was another woman. But as I got into optimal level and I started going to women's organizations because I was looking for women, and I would hear either women talking amongst themselves or I would hear other women's speeches. And I found that everybody was well-intentioned, but they were kind of lost at that time. They did not know how to move forward. And that's really why I started writing books for women in business. And I felt disappointed at progress. I wanted progress to move more quickly. And it just kept repeating itself in terms of women on boards, in terms of women leaders in corporations, in terms of, women owning their own businesses. Then there started this incredible growth of women business owners. It just started more and more and more and more. And I was thrilled, but I could see that women started businesses, but they didn't have too much of a clue about how to grow their businesses. It was interesting.
Do you think that there was, because we know that a lot of entrepreneurs get their MBA on the street. There are very few entrepreneurs that go to business school. And typically, if you've gone to business school, you don't have that much more of a clue until you get out there and do it anyway.
Exactly.
Do you think it was possibly that women have smaller expectations for what their business should be?
I do. I think that they have dreams, but those aren't the same as their expectations. They dream of being big, but because of what I think is inherent in the way our society has treated women, and it goes back, it's cultural. It goes back way to, the Catholic Church and beyond that. And women have learned what their place is, from the cavemen about what we did and what men did. And so I think women have that kind of stamped on them somehow. Mm-hmm. And so their expectations for themselves were not great, I think. And as time passed, that started to change a little.
Yeah. And one of the things that I see just in the clients that I work with and looking at when we do have surges of entrepreneurialism and women starting their own companies, it's almost as if we get to a critical mass of what we're able to do within corporations. And then we hit that ceiling and you're either going to fight it or fuck it. And I'm out. I'm going to burn it to the ground and do my own thing because I'm done playing your game. But I think what I'm seeing in this feminine recession and the new revolution that's going to follow is that the ones that did hang in there and that did play by the rules and climbed the ladder were discarded and quickly. And so how does, just as a collective, how do you see that positioning us for what the expectations should be? Do you think we should be going back to corporations and fighting our way up? Is entrepreneurialism, successful entrepreneurialism, the answer? Or is there something else?
I believe that we need women in corporations because they are so influential in our society. And some of, women are more nurturing, all the things we know about women that would be so valuable with more women leaders. Mm-hmm. But I think that we should work toward helping women rise in corporations and support them when they do. That's what my second book is about. I think that I wish every woman in a corporation could have a coach, because coaches see the beauty, the excellence, and the wonderful talent that women don't often see in themselves. So if I had my druthers, I would see that every woman that was on the rise in leadership at least have mentors, but mentors kind of mentored women the way they mentored men. And it doesn't work the same. You just say, hey, come on to the golf course and, meet so-and-so. Women need to understand that what skills they have that are so important, what to delegate to other people, when to use support when something is a problem and they're in a jam or something like that. So there's different things that women have to learn to be successful in corporations. And for women in business, all of the organizations that have come up, I think are a real good thing for women, are a really good thing for them, as long as they have that support. But men have a different operating system when it comes to business. They don't put themselves down. They don't pick on their weaknesses. They go, oh God, that was a horrible mistake. Jesus, don't do that again. And then they're right back up. Women have that set into their brains and linger, and they use that to hold themselves back, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the shame and the self-doubt are two of the most detrimental things.
Totally.
And I know that part of my ability to bounce back has been having your support and having someone there to tell me, yeah, that was a mistake. Don't do it again. Get back out there and try. And that's really all it takes.
It really does.
Somebody
and
that
the other four things that are three things, because you mentioned one of them, that are part of my magic formula. Self-doubt was one of them. And then there's three other things too.
What are the three other things? Do we get to know, or do we have to buy the book?
Well, you could. No, it's not in my book. I use this when I talk to groups and I do speeches, and it is in my book. It's in How to Be Powerful. You're absolutely right. I forgot about that. So another thing is to view failure as a friend. When we fail, we do a number on ourselves. We either eat ourselves into oblivion, or we're in bed with the covers over our head and we think we're the worst thing that ever happened in the world, And I learned that when failure happens, it's really a friend. It's coming to say, look, you screwed up, and now not to ever do that again. And that we all have that. So that's one of them. The second was becoming accustomed to self-doubt and trusting myself. I learned to do that. I learned not to compare myself with other people. That was the worst for me. I just looked at everybody and I said, my dear friend that I adore, Sarah Victory, was a better speaker than me. And so, I compared myself to her and I didn't stand a chance, that kind of stuff. And I learned really overall not to compare myself, because it doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't help anybody. And my dad told me there's a continuum, in the world. And on this side is, the worst. And on this side is the best. And if you get on this continuum, there's always people trying to get ahead of you and you can fall off this thing. So don't even bother comparing yourself. And then the last one was not to worry about what I didn't have. I could focus on my talents, and I could either go to a friend, a mentor, I could read a book, I could hire people that didn't have that had something that I lacked, some talent I lacked. So instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I learned to find a way to get it from others. So those are the four things I think are really important for women to know.
That's the epitome of being scrappy. If I don't have it, I'm going to go out and find it. And if I need to find it for free, I'm going to do that. And if I need to find a way to pay for it, I'm going to do that. I tell the story all the time about, making $24,000 a year when I first met Jim, and his class was $18,000. But you know what I did? I found a way, because I knew it was going to change my life. And that's really what it's going to take to get us through this next phase of the revolution, is we've got to stop expecting that the world owes us something. Yes, you may have a degree. Yes, you may have tons of experience, but it's just been proven that unless you can be scrappy and get out there and stop blaming yourself or waiting for somebody to lift you up, because that is nobody's job. The answer is you.
You have to believe in yourself and then go knock them dead.
Yeah.
Just believe in yourself and get out there and, like you say, be scrappy. The scrap metal business was extraordinarily competitive. They did dirty stuff, you know? And I said, I am going to ignore that and I'm just going to keep going. You have to want it badly enough. You have to learn that you have what you need to get it and just keep knocking down those doors. That's what I believe.
I love that. So if we can really quickly, because I know we're getting close on time, what were the mental and emotional touchstones that kept you strong and steady as you went up and down that continuum?
The things that I mentioned, self-doubt, failure, I don't remember what they were just now, but those things I think were important for me emotionally to keep going, you know, learning to love yourself, not compare yourself, to keep going. I think those were the things that were important to me and answers that.
And I think, you know, having the pleasure of watching you live a life, you stay true to those things. And it shows when you show up in a room, what shows up with you is confidence, love, and a little bit of, I'm not going to participate in anything that doesn't make sense for me. Thank you very much.
Exactly. You know something, I've always been extremely direct, Marie, and because I don't see any reason to do anything different. And some people don't like it. And that's fine, because I have these extraordinary people that happen to like it. And that's all I needed, you know? That's why I walk in a room, I do feel confident because I know who I am and what I've done. And I do love people and I love helping people. And you're so right. And as I said, it's been a joy knowing you, to see your progress. Just an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out, because there were so many gems that you rolled out during that conversation. But unless we take action, it's just chatter for the sake of chatter. So I know that I am going to really take a moment to take stock of where I still trigger self-doubt, because you've got to grab those limiting beliefs over and over again, look them in the eye and say, you're not serving me. You can go now. And you're going to come up with new self-doubts and new fears and new stories that you tell yourself over and over, especially as you go through life where, you know, I don't know, a pandemic happens, or you lose your partner, or you become a third grade teacher and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You've got to be able to face those things and do it from a place of professional love. So I would love to hear from the audience. Please put in the reviews and in the chats what you are going to do after listening to this podcast. Make sure that you check out Linda's podcast, Lightning Strikes, and leave her some reviews. Buy her latest book, How to Be Powerful: Insider Secrets to Brilliant Leadership, Sales, and Speaking. Make sure you review Clutching Our Pearls as well. We want to hear your beautiful voices. Listen, everything has changed in the past 18 months. If you don't change with it, then you are the problem. Don't be the problem anymore. Be the solution. Forward revolution is that loud, brash voice that demands a space at the table. You deserve power, not because somebody has given it to you, but because you deserve power. It's okay to take it. It's okay to stand in your own skin. And Linda is such a glorious example of that. We women are not disposable workers. We are the mothers and the caretakers that have become logistical contortionists to earn money, educate our children, and keep our families healthy during a pandemic. And we're also the ones that have been expelled from the traditional workforce and have had to figure out a different way to make our own living, and have been marginalized and downsized in mainstream America. We are the square pegs in America's round hole. We are the mothers. We are the others. I want to thank our sponsors who have helped us start this venture, the Chicago Jewish Home and Safety Chicks. And I'm asking for your help. Who do you know that needs to be connected to the revolution? Who is going to be able to shout from the mountaintops that this is no longer okay? There is a different way to build this world, and that we are here to love and support one another and get out there and kick some ass. This podcast and this revolution are part of my dream, and so are each and every one of you. Please go to our website, fwdrevolution.com, and you can learn a whole lot more about where we're going, open jobs. There's a revolutionary portal in there with a ton of resources to help you get through this. Follow us on social media and sign up to be a revolutionary. Take action. Join us, because you can't spell momentum without mom. Linda, I love you. You have been such a delight to chat with, as always. And for those of you that have not had the pleasure of knowing Linda McCabe, you're just going to have to wait in line, because I totally call dibs. Thank you so much for joining us today. Linda, I love you. We'll talk to you soon.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Bye.
Bye.